Good morning, YouTube. It's not every day that you get to check out a vehicle that stickers for nearly 120 grand. So thankfully, our brand new 4K camera has arrived to show you this vehicle in all its high-tech and luxurious glory. This A8 has nearly every option available to us in the US, including the amazing executive rear seating, among other things. Of course, we do want to give a big thanks and shout out to our friends at Audi of Lexington. And if you're in the market for any new Audi, be sure to pay their dealership a visit or check out their website, which we provided a link to in the video description. So with all that said, let's check out one of the most advanced and luxurious cars on the planet. So starting out here on the outside, the A8 goes for a powerful and elegant look versus one that's in your face. That said, however, it does have the largest rendition of Audi's signature single-frame grille to ever grace a sedan, and it's finished in a pretty eye-catching chrome. There is not a black optic package or anything like that available. Mimicking the hard lines of the grille, the headlights have a very high-tech look with a ton of different elements. Now these are the optional matrix LED lights, so even though they do look cooler, here in the US the functionality is limited. But if our regulations ever do change, you've already got the hardware that's required for advanced high beams that can dim in different segments instead of just on and off. But where the A8 really starts to stand out from other sedans on the road is its extreme length. Like all the rivals, there is no longer a standard wheelbase, so all you've got is this L, measuring in at an insane 17.5 feet long. For reference, that is 14 inches larger than the A6, and actually even larger than the Cadillac Escalade. I do also want to mention here that all models come with an air suspension, but there is an optional predictive active suspension that can essentially allow the vehicle to skip over bumps and potholes. Plus, it also raises up in half a second for easier entry and to protect passengers in T-bone collisions. These are some seriously innovative features. But coming back to the styling, the rear also has a conservative and elegant design, with the main feature being Audi's new full-width taillight design. Since we have the Matrix headlights, these are the upgraded OLED taillights that have the really neat entry and exit animation. Finally, at the bottom, we actually have quad exhaust outlets, but they're unfortunately hidden behind some fake tips. Overall though, I think the A8 styling accomplishes exactly what it needs to be long, elegant, and stately, while still having the advanced lighting to show there's an emphasis on technology. Now heading up to the wheels, they are large just like the rest of the vehicle at 20 inches. These particular ones are the optional V-spoke wheels, but there is still a standard 19-inch rim if you prefer that one. And as far as your mirrors, they of course have the full gauntlet of technology, from auto dimming, heating, power folding, as well as your blind spot monitoring, which is located on the back side of the mirror. And on the topic of safety systems, this is undoubtedly one of the biggest features for the new A8. As you would expect, it's got all the regular stuff that Audis always have. Plus, it's debuting several new features in the driver's assistance package, including the intersection assist to help in situations where you have an obstructed view. However, one thing we won't get here in the US is the Level 3 autonomous driving system called Traffic Jam Pilot, which current regulations don't allow for. We instead get adaptive cruise assist, which works in a similar way, but it does require that you keep your hands on the wheel at all times. And the last thing to look at on the outside is the pretty large 21.7 gallon fuel tank. This is good for a healthy 477 miles of range, of course on premium unleaded fuel. But anyways, that's it for the outside. So now let's get to the part you really want to see, the elaborate executive interior. So on the A8, you do get a little bit of a different fob than your typical Audi. It's smaller and thinner, and then mirroring the inside, it does have piano black trim, and aluminum on the sides. And then of course, to get inside the vehicle, all you have to do is grab the handle. And you will notice it is an electronic one, so you barely have to pull on it at all to open up the door. Alright, so looking inside the cabin of the 2019 Audi A8, it's just extremely impressive how high-tech it looks and also how opulent it looks. Of course, as with all flagship models, you've got an abundance of choices for your interior combinations. So starting off with your base model, if you want to call it that, you've got Valletta leather in 3 different colors: black, beige, or brown. However, if you go for the luxury package like our model has, that unlocks Valcona leather, which is a little bit nicer of a grade, and it gives you some more color options. So you've got black, nutmeg brown, pearl beige, Saiga beige, and then this model's really rich, deep, dark Sarder brown. And finally, regardless of leather or color choice, you've got 3 different woods to choose between: natural eucalyptus, fine ash gray, or natural dark brown walnut. Of course, turning to your door trim, it is supremely luxurious. So you've got leather on the armrest, all of the upper portion, and even leather down here on the extreme lower part. Additionally, you've got an Alcantara trim through here, and then beautiful open pore wood through the middle part. Going down to your windows, they are aluminum switches, and of course all 4 are fully automatic. And then you've got standard 2-person memory seating right here. For the seats, the standard model comes with 18-way power seats. However, we have the luxury package, which bumps them up to 22-way and then adds in the special massaging function. And then of course, this Valcona leather is to die for. It is extremely soft and supple. Then you've got a really attractive stitching design and perforation. Now, of course, the car does have a mechanism to pull the door closed if you fail to do so on your own. Now, the last flagship level vehicle I was in was the Lexus LS. And frankly, these two could not be more different in the design. However, they're very similar in the awesome material choices. So as you would expect, that does mean you have leather in pretty much every conceivable location. So you've got leather with stitching all across the upper dash. And then as you drop down lower, you've got real open pore wood and aluminum trim. Now this center part and this area down here are mostly made of a piano black trim. And then you've got more leather and more wood for your center tunnel. As well as, like I said, even way down here, you just never see that on any type of car, having leather that far down. Now, of course, you do have push button start. And when you press it, you've got some really cool theatrics. So as you can see, the vents pop out of the wood and your tweeters come out of the dash. So this is really cool. And just reminds you that you're in a $120,000 car. Now, turning our attention to the screens themselves, we've got a 10.3-inch touchscreen up top, and then an 8.6-inch secondary touchscreen on the bottom. This is part of your new MMI Touch system, and we'll go into the details of this a little later in the video. Now, of course, no Audi would be complete without their famous virtual cockpit. However, it is a little bit different here on the A8. This is version 2.0. So you won't notice a great deal of changes, but there are some different graphics along the top. And then the performance is just generally smoother and more refined animation since you have more processing power on board. And then, of course, you've got your Google Earth Maps, which is still something that the rivals just don't have. Now, coming back to your steering wheel, it is electric power assisted, And you've got a unique 4-spoke design for the leather wrap wheel. Now, as far as the actual buttons themselves, they are similar to other Audis. So this section here is for your virtual cockpit, and then on the side you've got your phone, voice, and audio controls. Up top, you've got standard rain sensing wipers, as well as aluminum paddle shifters. And then, of course, the wheel is power adjusting, as well as heated if you choose the cold weather package. Now, off to the side here, there is one other really neat thing I want to point out, and that's your electronic switch for your vents. Now, basically, you can just swipe across through here to control how much air you want to come out of the vent. And then if you swipe all the way over to the off position, then the vent will hide itself. So this can be done for all 4 of the front vents here. So you can, at will, control whether you want to see the vent or not. It's a really cool trick. Now, moving on to the storage part. The A8 has plenty of little places to store things, although a little bit less than you might expect. Now, starting out here with your center console, it does open up in 2 different parts. And then inside, you'll notice it is luxuriously felt lined, but it is a little shallow. You also do have a wireless phone charger, so all you have to do is just lay your phone right there, and it will charge. If you don't have a compatible device, you of course still have your standard USB ports. Now, there is some space to store some stuff underneath of this part. And then right here, you've got your 2 cup holders, as well as a 12-volt outlet underneath some piano black trim. Otherwise, there is also a nice little spot. This is big enough to store a small phone or different valuables like coins or anything like that, right here in the armrest. Now, just like most recent Audis, they did go for an electronic shifter because it allows you to basically have an armrest to control your display over here. So for drive, all you have to do is pull back. Then you can press over to the right and shift manually like that. Or of course, you can use these paddle shifters that I mentioned earlier. Now, to get into reverse, you click up an extra notch. And when you do, you will notice a 360-degree camera fire up. Now, this is a really neat system for a variety of reasons. One thing, as you can see, the camera itself turns as I turn the steering wheel. So instead of just having the dynamic turn lines, the actual camera itself points in the direction I'm turning. But the coolest thing is the 3D view. When you activate this, basically you have a view as if you were a third person all around the vehicle. So as you can see, this car is driving by, and we can watch it drive by just spinning around the vehicle and can control the angle and everything, so you really can tell exactly what's going on around you. Now, I believe the 7 Series may have something similar, but this is without a doubt the best 360-degree camera system I've experienced in person. And then, of course, you just press the P for park. And then back behind the shifter, you've got an aluminum electronic parking brake. Now, as far as your other buttons, you have a button to manually activate the camera, as well as this button, which cycles through your different, basically, capacities of the safety system. So if you want the maximum capacity or a more basic approach. And now that brings us over to the audio system. Now, the A8 does come standard with a Bang & Olufsen 3D sound system. However, this particular model comes with the $6,000 Bang & Olufsen Advanced 3D sound system. And that has 1920 watts and 23 speakers. So let's go ahead and take a sample. This is without a doubt one of the finest sound systems I have ever heard. And now that brings us up to the first display. Now this is primarily used for your climate controls. Basically, instead of physical buttons, we now have virtual buttons to clean everything up down here. And it's not as big of a deal to get used to as you would think, because Audi uses a haptic feedback touchscreen. So as you can see, just pressing your finger on something actually doesn't do anything. It just highlights over it. In order to actually accomplish something, you've got to press in. And it makes a click, and it's very tactile, and it's something pretty easy to get used to. And then down below, you've got your 3-stage ventilation as well as 3-stage heating. That button brings up your additional functions, which is your heated steering wheel, your rear climate controls, as well as your ionizer and your fragrance system. Now we can hop into the settings here for your fragrance system, and you've got some different selections. You've got summer and winter flavors, I don't know what that means. And then you can choose between subtle, light, medium, or a really strong fragrance. So we'll try strong and see what that smells like. Now this car also has some pretty insane features like surface heating, so you can choose the areas you want to heat, like your armrest or whatnot. And then we've also got special dedicated temperature control for the footwell. So really neat system. Kind of down here in the same panel, we've got a few more controls for your drive mode select. And just like most Audis, you've got 4 modes, including an individual mode where you can click into. And this would allow you just to customize what you prefer, like your sport driving, comfort suspension, and sport steering, for instance. And then additionally, this is where you can lower and raise your air suspension. Next to that, you've got your traction control as well as a few other climate controls. Up top of this display, you've got another row of general settings. This one is regarding your auto start stop. This one is a home address to take you straight to your house. Those are your virtual garage door openers. This is for your rear sunshade. And then you can, of course, just turn this display off. The top display off if you don't need it. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this bottom display. However, we'll go ahead and go into the new MMI Touch Response system. Like I said, it is all new. No other Audi has ever had a touchscreen before, so we'll go ahead and check this new system out. So like I just said, this is an all-new system for Audi, and it's going to be rolling out to most of their future vehicles, starting with the A8 and going to the A6, A7, Q8, etc. Now this is of course totally unique because previously they had no touchscreen at all, and now you've got 2 touch displays to work between. They've really tried to make this tablet-like, so you've got your home screen and basically you have apps that go across. And you can hold down on these and reconfigure the order to whatever you desire. And then on the side, you've got shortcut buttons, and these always stay here no matter what part of the system that you're in. So we'll start off in the media. We're currently connected to Bluetooth, and you can play and pause music straight from here. Up top, you can switch to all your different sources. And then we can easily go back to the home screen like that. Hopping into phone next, you've got all of your contacts which automatically sync over. You can just scroll through them. Next up, we've got navigation. Now, of course, you do have your Google Earth Maps. And you can control the tilt. So you have 3D view, and this is as detailed as it is in any other Audi product. Now to actually set the destination, you just hit the search button. And when you do, you'll notice that you drop down a full keyboard down here so you can easily type whatever you're looking for. Or, even cooler, you hit the hand button and you go into a handwriting mode. So basically you can just go across here and write the entire address that you want. So we can say 3100.
3100.
But going back to the seats, you can make all of your full adjustments here. And you can also activate your massage. So I can hit start here, and I can change the intensity. And we have all types of different functions. So we have shoulder, stretch, relax. And there's also, if you swipe over one more time, we even have heating, so you can change different, if I want the back to be hot, but the bottom not to be hot, equally hot, or the reverse of that. And that goes for both the driver and passenger seat as well. And it's not just like a lumbar that pumps in and out like in more affordable vehicles. This is a real deal massage. Like, it's really pushing into me right now. So you're definitely gonna feel it and be relaxed. Now, I'm not gonna go through every single feature, but the one really neat thing left to talk about is the Apple CarPlay. But it's not just regular Apple CarPlay, this is wireless Apple CarPlay. So as you can see, here's our iPhone, totally unconnected from anything. And we do have access to the full Apple CarPlay system. It works just the same as it does on any other model. The only thing different here is that there's no haptic feedback when you're inside of Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which, by the way, Android Auto works with your USB port. Well, that pretty much hits the highlights of the new MMI Touch Response system. However, we will have a dedicated tech help video that really digs into the details coming soon. One last thing I do want to point out before we move on is that this, your microfiber cloth, this will be your best friend if fingerprints bother you, because there is a lot of piano black trim throughout the cabin, including down here, and especially on these screens. So you'll definitely want to wipe them off. And there is a setting within this display that you can put it into a screen cleaning mode so that you'll be able to wipe without accidentally changing settings. Now, moving on up, you do have a standard frameless auto dimming mirror with a built-in compass, as well as some touch sensitive LED lighting. Additionally, of course, we have a dual panel moonroof. So you can open up the back one, as well as the front one, and the rear passenger can control both of them from their remote control. Front panel does also open up really big. But overall, there's really nothing bad I can say about this cabin. It is insanely luxurious and insanely high-tech. And it's without a doubt one of the finest cabins available at any price point in any vehicle anywhere in the world. The door handle is electronic, so you just lightly touch it and it will open up. Now I'll go ahead and hand it off to Mason to show off all the really sweet stuff in the backseat.
Alright, so in the back of the all-new A8, you're going to find an all-new and extremely fancy rear seat. It's now only available in the long wheelbase form for 2019, which helps it to be larger than most of its rivals, including the Mercedes S-Class, Lexus LS, and on par with the BMW 7 Series. Now, the technical measurements are 44.3 inches of legroom and 38.5 inches of headroom. And before we check out all that awesome tech and executive rear seat stuff, let's go ahead and check out the door trim. Now, as you would expect out of a flagship sedan, it is made of supremely nice materials. We've got leather where your arm will rest, an Alcantara trim above it, some beautiful wood trim, and as a part of the extended leather package, we do have it on the very upper portion, as well as down by the speaker grills. Now, here are your controls for the reclining rear seat. If you just push this button, it will actually recline the seat fully. I'll get into that in a minute. And you do also have memory seat settings. Now, of course, your rear windows are automatic, and you do also have switchgear for the rear sunshades as well. Now the seat itself is probably the most comfortable seat I have ever sat in. You honestly like melt when you sit in these seats. They are amazing, and they are made of supple, extremely nice leather. Now, as you would expect out of a flagship sedan, you do have plenty of things in the rear seat. It's going to take me quite a while to cover them all, but here in the center you do have just your standard vents, nothing too fancy. However, for the fan controls, it is pretty slick. You do have a touch capacitive setup, so you just drag your finger across to adjust the fan speed, and it will adjust the fan speed for each passenger. Of course, it is 4 zones, so each passenger does have their own adjustability. And these controls are very easy to use, so you're not going to have a hard time adjusting to them. And down below that, you do have 12-volt connections, and there are more power outlets available here in the rear areas that I'll cover in a minute. Also, this is wrapped in leather as a part of that extended leather group. But coming back, this is where the real main stuff is on the Audi A8. So we actually have the rear comfort package, which throws in this big, nice armrest that can fold down that gives a ton of different controls for your rear seat. Now, I would spend all day out here covering every single feature of this, but I'm going to go through the highlights and show you some of the coolest stuff that the system can do. So heading back here, we do have our own seat controls for each rear seat. So it is power adjusting, of course, and you do have 4-way power lumbar support. So if I wanted to recline all the way out, I just push this button, and it does recline the seat very well. Now, it is worth mentioning that this button here in the middle, this will adjust the passenger seat. So if I push this and then push my seat control forward, it's going to move the passenger seat forward to give you more room. Now, also, if you want to stretch fully out, I mentioned this button on the door earlier. So you just push this button here, that's the recline emblem. And when you do that, it's going to fully recline you, and you are going to be extremely comfortable. So I'm doing that right now, and I'm reclined. It feels like I'm on my sofa at home. It's amazing. Now, that is pretty much it for your seat controls. However, the coolest part is this detachable tablet style controller here. So this is pretty much your standard thing. The LS Executive has something like this. However, what it doesn't have is the ability to detach it. So push this button and it will pop out, and it's wireless. So you can like take this out and adjust it. If they wanted to control something, you give it to them. Or if you wanted to control something, you can give it to yourself. So here you have all of your controls. Now this is an extremely detailed system. It has so much stuff in it, it took me like 30 minutes to figure out all the features this thing has. So to start out, I'm just going to lay this down here for a second. If you swipe up from the bottom, you have your climate controls. Now, say I'm getting a little hot here. Let's turn this down, and I adjust it like that. And you can adjust your fan speed, of course. And we can collapse that. And if we drag down from the top, we have audio controls. Now, arguably the bigger feature, though, you have all of your seat controls. So if I wanted to turn on my heated rear seat, it, of course, is 3-stage heated, which is actually kind of optional on all the trims if you don't get the rear seat comfort package. But we do also have ventilation, of course, 3 stages. And in the seat menu is where you'll find all of your really cool stuff that's included in the rear seat comfort package. So of course you can adjust all of your different things based on the seats. So you can slide it forward as well as activate the massaging function that you get in the rear seat comfort package. So I was playing with this a little earlier. You can choose the seat right here. It has illuminated which seat is which. So right now I'm adjusting the right side seat. And you have all these different types of massages you can pick between. Wave, circular, stretch, relaxation. I was getting a shoulder massage earlier. And you do also have the ability to adjust the intensity, which is actually quite nice. It's 3 stages. And heading back into the seat setting button, I do want to point out that you can click on individual parts of the seat. It doesn't even matter which seat it is. And say I want to adjust the driver's headrest, I can adjust it up and down, which is really, really neat. Alright, and heading back to the home screen, that is not the end of all these features. So we do also have the LED matrix lights here in the rear, and that basically gives you the ability to control where the lights go. So there are a lot of LED bulbs here in the ceiling, and when we turn these on, you can like target specific areas of the cabin. Say if you're reading a book and you want it over here, the lights can shine directly at that area. So let's go ahead and click into that. And as you can see, you do have reading lights as well as an individual mode. And you can like click on, so right now I'm adjusting for the right seat, and when I turn them on here, you can see they do illuminate, and I can actually even adjust the brightness of each one, as well as target the specific areas like I was mentioning earlier. Like if I want it right here or over there, I can just drag this little circle to illuminate the area that I want it to. And like I said, you can adjust the brightness of these bulbs as well, which is insane. I've never seen you have the ability to adjust a light bulb like that. And of course you do have your ambient lighting as well, with a million different modes. You can have like Caribbean and whatever that means, and you can also adjust the brightness for that. Now it is also worth mentioning, you do have rear sunshades. So like I mentioned earlier, you do have controls on each door to adjust the sunshades. So the ones in the front are for the sunshades. So if I want to lift that one up, I can do that real quick over here. And I can obviously do it from this tablet as well. So right now it's showing that I have this one open, and I can change basically anything that I want back here. And you do also have some tips if you're having trouble figuring it out. I know it's a little bit overwhelming how many controls you have, but it is absolutely crazy, and you have controls over anything that you want once you get used to it. So now that I'm done with that rant, I'm going to go ahead and attach it back in here, and it just snaps back in like that. It's really simple to use, and you will notice that my heated seats came on, so you can use it kind of in the center console as well, like a lot of the other rivals do have. Now we do also have a nice center armrest. This is pretty traditional, and of course it is felt lined, and you do have a couple USB ports in here, which is nice because the 12-volt outlets aren't that useful. And in addition to that, we do have a panoramic moonroof, so we can also adjust this shade through the rear seat controller. And beside that, you do have mirrors. So in case you need to check your hair or whatever before an important business meeting, you do have that option. And it does also have an LED light. Beside that, you do have an assist grip and coat hook, as well as some more speakers for this amazing audio system. But we're not done yet with all the features, because we do have these dual 10.1-inch tablet screens mounted on the back of each seat back. Now these aren't just the regular rear seat entertainment system. These are also detachable, like that pad in the middle. So you do have to locate, it's going to be hard for me to do with one hand, but you do have to locate buttons on each side and pull out, and then it will detach, just like that. So this is actually a 10.1-inch tablet. It's an Android style tablet. So when we turn it on here, it's trying to connect to the Audi MMI system, but we can go ahead and skip that. Yes, and you can register your tablet and all that stuff. But basically this is a Android tablet, and absolutely everything is the same as a regular Android tablet. And you also have controls for the Audi MMI system. So it's prompting me through all these features and stuff, but the real cool thing about this is that it's connected via their 4G LTE Wi-Fi hotspot. So this Android tablet, you can watch a YouTube video on the back. So if our internet was working, I don't know if it is or not, you could pull up one of our car Confections videos and watch that on your ride around. So that's actually really neat. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only car in this class that has that feature, and pretty much the only car in the world that has that feature. So I think that's really neat, and it's a nice thing that Audi just gave you this. Didn't just throw in another rear seat entertainment system that all the rivals do have. Now, believe it or not, there is another rear seat package available. So even though this one is fully loaded besides for this package, there is another package called the Executive Rear Seat Package. And that basically extends this armrest down, and you will not have a fifth seat available, so this thing won't fold up, and it's just going to be a fixed area with even more controls. Now the cool thing about that one, I'm sure you probably heard of it, is the foot massager in the back of the front passenger seat. So when you recline it all the way down, there is a foot massager integrated into the back of the passenger seat that will give you a foot massage in addition to your massaging rear seats and every other feature available. In addition to that, you do also get rear heating on the surfaces, as well as a fold-down table. Now obviously legroom isn't an issue in the A8 since it now is only long wheelbase version only. So behind Drew's position I have like 1.5 feet of space, so legroom is not going to be an issue, and if it is, you do have the option to adjust the front seats forward with this button back here. But overall, the rear seat of this all-new A8 is stunning. We've been in a lot of the rivals, and a lot of them are really nice, but this A8 probably has the best rear seat I have ever been in any vehicle. Not only is it comfortable, it has every tech feature that I could ever imagine and more. I've never even thought that a lot of these features would be available in a car, and the fact that it's available on something that cost $120,000 instead of like in a Rolls Royce is pretty amazing. So overall, I can't say enough how impressed I am with this rear seat. Now, of course, the door handles are electronic. Now heading around to the trunk of the all-new A8, it is hands-free power across all models, so just wave your foot under the bumper or find the button under the lid. Now once inside, you're going to find 12.5 cubic feet of space, which does make it quite a bit smaller than some of its rivals. However, I think it's pretty deep. It is just a little narrow. Now obviously it is made of a nice carpeting material, and underneath the floor you do have a full-size spare tire. Additionally, on each side you do have a net. And it is worth noting that the seats do not fold due to all that tech and reclining functions. To close it, just push the button on the top. Now the seat is the same beautiful design, and of course it is power adjusting, and you do have silver trim around each of the seat controls. It's also worth mentioning that we do have 2-person memory seats for the passenger seat as well, and we do also have these touch capacitive fan controls on this side as well. Now in front of the passenger, it is a lot of piano black trim, but you do also have this beautiful burl walnut wood, and like if the air vent was off, then it would also be one continuous piece through here. Now the glove box is leather wrapped even all the way down here, and of course it is nicely felt lined, and it's actually very good sized. Now above that you do have a regular sun visor, and it does have a mirror and LED light. But anyway guys, that's pretty much all I'm going to cover as far as the rear areas are concerned in the A8. So now let's go ahead and get to the all new crazy powertrain.
Alright, so at launch, the new A8 comes with just one powertrain option, and that's going to be the base powertrain, a 3-liter turbo V6 making 335 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. Now it is going to be a little bit less power than a base S-Class or a Lexus LS, however it is more power than the base 7 Series offers. And of course you will also have a V8 option become available later on in the year. Now this consists of 2 components, a 48-volt starter generator, and then a small lithium-ion battery pack. The battery pack does not assist in the driving itself, but instead it basically powers your car electronics, so the auto start-stop system can be very aggressive. And by aggressive I mean that it can turn off at idle, as well as even while you're coasting in the vehicle, the engine can be powered off. And then it recharges the battery through your brake regeneration. As far as the other traditional things, you've got your 8-speed automatic transmission is the only option, and of course all models come with Quattro all-wheel drive. And then for fuel economy, you're looking at 19 city, 27 highway, 22 combined on premium fuel. Definitely has enough power to get out of its own way, that's for sure. Now the horsepower ratings admittedly don't seem that great for something so big, but 0 to 60 is 5.6 seconds, I believe, and that's more than enough. I mean, that's really quite impressive. Excuse me, given the size of this.
This is like 18 feet long.
It's very long, and it is very heavy.
Full of leather and luxurious materials. And this is the base engine as well, so this is the...
Right, there will be a V8
Yes.
become available in the future. And we're in the dynamic mode, which holds the revs up. This is probably not the, perhaps the way that most people will keep the vehicle. I'm going to click it up into the comfort mode here. So we're going to go over some speed bumps here. Really impressive. Now I put it in comfort mode, so this does give us the most plush ride. You know, softer throttle response. More like what the average person that owns this type of vehicle would be interested in doing. Yeah, this really tames things down. It's really extra hushed. You can hear nothing, and it is so plush. It's outrageous. The road, it's so isolated. You can feel almost nothing. This is a rough road, and you just glide. And this is what people buy a car like this for, to set in the back and just glide along in
like that was
supreme comfort.
a very big bump, and it just, like he said, it just glides right over top. It doesn't even feel like there is a bump anymore, and it doesn't make any noise, so you honestly wouldn't even know if you hit a bump.
Now I will mention, this is not even the intelligent adaptive suspension, which will become available also a little later in the year. And that suspension uses camera systems and whatnot, and it raises, like if you're approaching the speed bump, and basically it just lets you glide over obstacles more or less. It's hard to explain. We can probably find a video clip of this in action. But more or less, you just glide over top of obstacles. And the inside of the cabin, it's not just that it's smooth, it actually does not move. which is incredible that a system like that does exist, but it is a thing that this car will have.
And just throughout the entire A8, the whole all-new model, technology has gone so high, and that even goes to the ride comfort. You know, you kind of think of this one as maybe more the tech-oriented model, but it's not. It's also luxurious as well.
And our auto start-stop just engaged. Of course, this is very advanced. Oh, and startup is extremely smooth.
Wow.
You can definitely tell the mild hybrid system at work. But overall, there really just can't say enough nice about this vehicle. I mean, it's stunning that something can be so good all around. You know, this is very luxurious and it's very high tech. And then kick it into dynamic mode, and it actually feels quite peppy and quite entertaining. So, you know, you truly, I guess, if you drop 120 grand, you deserve to get everything, and you pretty much do get
And
the best of everything.
All new A8 definitely delivers on that. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed watching one of the first in-depth looks at the all-new 2019 Audi A8L. Stay watching for a quick look at the pricing, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons below. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.
Mm-hmm.